We're back with Evelyn Thoren. She is a former school committee member. She is a Chelmsford Town Meeting representative, Precinct 5. And you're also working on the Arts and Technology Education Fund. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. But I'd like first I'd like to make sure that any of the teachers and staff know that the Arts and Technology Education Fund have applications out, and that the deadline for them to get back, whether it's postmarked or they go and have it stamped at the town offices, is March 31st.
Okay.
And all of that information is online. There's a lot of information within the application. And if anybody has any questions, they certainly can contact the chair, Kirk Marshall, or ask any of us, you know, if there's anything that they need or they want.
So this is teachers within the Chelmsford school system
Yes.
applying for specific technology for their classrooms, or how does it work?
Well, it's arts and technology. And then
Okay.
as a definition of that is if they have, and that pretty much covers the whole territory. We do not like to do a lot of things in terms of computers or something that the budget should really be taken care of.
Okay.
So that's something different. So if a teacher wanted to do something that would enrich their current curriculum, but didn't have the funding for it, or if it was an innovative idea, something extra, then that's something that they would be able to apply for, up to $750.
Oh, wow.
Now, what a lot of them do is they'll go to the PTOs. When they go to the PTOs might say, we will give you X amount if you can get this from this source and this from another source. And sometimes what they do is they bundle the money, but we're part of that, one part of it. Another time they may only need a couple of $100s in order to buy something extra that they want, or a subscription to a magazine, or if there's a newspaper or something like that, that would have some added value within their classroom. I don't like to see subscriptions because that's a one-shot deal. I like to sort of see something that is more lasting that they might purchase. For instance, Byam School seemed to have a long-range plan that each year they would come forward and ask for some specific funding for books. And those books would be shared amongst all the teachers. When they finished with what their program was for the books, because we had the financing for it at the time, then they had a plan for how they were going to redo one of the closets at the school so they could put all the books in there so teachers could check them out and it would be very well organized. So it wasn't arbitrary. And they'd be able to track everything. So it was like a whole program, but it took them like 5 or 6 years to do it.
Right.
We also had in the past, if they had a group of students that wanted to do a mural, and then they needed the money in order to be able to either purchase whatever the board was, or the if it was oil paints or brushes or whatever, we've done that. We've been ongoing with some support in the music program, where there's additional instruments that may not be part of what the curriculum is, but the teacher wants to add that to the program, or music that they don't have, but it might be something in addition to it. Some of the, we started with clickers. Way before town meeting had the clickers, there were some teachers that came forward and said, we'd like to have clickers so that the student would be able to, you know, click to see if the right answer comes up, rather than just calling on students all the time to see how well they did in answering the questions on a percentage basis. And then after that, we talked to the town and said, you know, if you want to borrow them, you know, we can go back and forth. And then lo and behold, we end up with clickers at town meeting in order to record every single one of our votes, so all of the residents know exactly what we did and when we did it.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting that they did that also. So there's a lot of things that it has supported over the years. We started in 1996.
Yeah, I was going to ask you when it actually started.
Right, and the way that we fund it is through the tax base. It's not taxes, but in your real estate tax bill, or I don't know if we have it in the sewer tax bill. I don't think so, because I just paid that today and I didn't see it. Water bill is separate. And the excise tax bill, so those two, you have a tear-off. And you can donate the money, and you have to earmark on your check that it's for the Arts and Technology Education Fund.
Okay.
The other thing that you can also do is when you go to pay your real estate taxes, if you aren't in escrow with a mortgage company, then you can say, I want to round this up, and that difference I would like you to put towards the Arts and Technology Education Fund. It is tax deductible, and it's a way in which we can increase the funding mechanism in the town. And I've gotten up and said if every resident in the town just gave $1, we'd have $9,000 every year. And I think that has increased since I said that when I was chair the last time. So if people think, and that's $1 a year, it's not even to say, I want you to give us $1 a quarter every time you pay your taxes. So if people thought about it that way, we would have a nice fund for teachers to be more creative with what they can do in order to enrich the curriculum in the Chelmsford Public Schools.
Wow. Now, what's the most unique proposal you've seen? Not to put you on the spot, but...
Considering like it's been 22 years,
Yeah.
I got to think of something that's unique.
It doesn't have to be the most unique, but I'm curious if...
Well, I don't know if it's unique. I mean, I'm going to try to think while I'm speaking a little bit. And we had, Byam School had put in for a grant quite a few years ago in order to do some upgrading of their courtyard. They wanted to be able to have a camera that was inside a nest that they had on glass, but it was two-way glass, so that it would go to one of the televisions, here I'm going to date myself here, one of the televisions in the library so the students could see the process of them laying the eggs, raising the babies, feeding the babies and everything, and be able to discuss that as one of the topics for library. So they did a few other things there also. So I've been there long enough that now that equipment is dated. They came back and asked for the new updated equipment. I mean, it's a long time.
Right.
And because that's, a one-shot deal, and it, again, is something that was sponsored not only by the teachers, the staff in the library and the science curriculum, but it was also the PTO helped to do it and the principal of the elementary school. So if the principal sees that there's ways in which the money can be used, then they also can initiate with the council, because we have a council per school because of the Ed Reform Act of 1993. So there's a council for each of the schools that goes through and evaluates different things and comes up with a plan within the school. So that's made up of staff, some administration, parents, and community members. And that's something, I think it's a little more low-key today than it was when I first started in '93. Because I was on the McCarthy Middle School one. I mean, and we had documents like this.
Wow.
And came forward and did presentations to the school committee about what we thought should be happening within the school system, and also within the parameters of what the school committee had set up and the superintendent had set up relative to curriculum and different other programs that they had. But as far as unique, I know that there was one of the teachers that really didn't have a lab at McCarthy, and they still don't have labs the way they should at the McCarthy Middle School. And she had gone and got used buckets. I don't know if she got them from Dunkin' Donuts at the time. This is a while back. And what she wanted was the money to equip the buckets so that they could go out to the brook that runs on McCarthy property.
Okay.
And do in-field research of whatever was in the brook, and then bring back the specimens or bring back what it was into the school so that they could observe it. I mean, I thought that was great. But then I'm a chemistry teacher, so I thought any of that kind of chemistry stuff, I think that's great. But I think that we also have, like I said, individual staff members that are in, say, like I said, music, and or in the library situation, so that they're looking in order to supplement everything that they have because the budget didn't cover it.
Right. No, it's always good to be able to kind of fund those things, to be honest with you, especially $700, you can get some pretty good stuff for up to $750. That's
right, and one of the things that's also interesting with this particular committee is, having been on the school committee, is that you would see trends. We saw originally the digital camera trend, where one person asked for it because there wasn't enough money in the budget in order to have everybody have one. So they were trying to get one per school, so they applied, we gave one. The next year there was like 10 people applied for digital cameras. We go, I don't think we're gonna fund it, but we will tell you this is a trend and you should be funding this because apparently your staff has a need for it. Then we had Elmo cameras. We did one. And the next year there were 8. And we're not going to do that because technology department really should be funding what this is. So we're seeing trends, not just in the technology, but like I said, you see them in the music, and you see them in the arts, and you see them with some of the different books and along those lines. There's a lot of different topics, but one teacher will have innovative idea, and then all of a sudden others will go, that's pretty good, when they see what's going on in the classroom. We want that too. But we can't keep funding because we don't have enough funds to do that.
Right.
You know, I think it's fortunate that we were able to give maybe away $3,500 a year. When we had the 20th anniversary, we just funded them all. And that was like 5,000 or 6,000. We do have a base because we never gave away everything that we took in. So we have a little bit of a cushion. So if we see extra things that we think are really worthwhile, we can pull on the cushion. But you remember, you only can pull on that for so long.
Right, right. Now, are you still doing work with policy and things with the school committee at this point?
It's funny you should ask that. I did text one of the members to find out if they had had any meetings since the last one, and they said no, and there's nothing in the queue. So I don't know what they're doing or they're not doing relative to that. I did attend the couple of subcommittee meetings that they had last fall as a community member. I'm not part of the committee in terms of a voting committee or it's a subcommittee off the school committee. One of the things I think that some of the members thought that I was creating policy. What they didn't seem to understand was that we were reviewing policy. And they still should be reviewing policy. And they decided to have the Massachusetts Association of School Committees do the policy manual, which is $10,000, $11,000. If they want to have them maintain it every year, it's roughly $1,000. And this is money that I didn't think we needed to spend because I thought that school committee members could do that. So that's what I had done for at least 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Or more, in order to make sure that we not only saved the money, but we were always up to date with things. And it wasn't me solely writing anything. Whenever I wrote something that was brand new, we had legal counsel write it. You would have someone from one of the departments write it. One of the curriculum coordinators might write it because they were getting audited at some point and they saw that there was a need because the Department of Education had a list of things that they needed to have. And they said, we don't have them in there, so we'll get those. We'll run them by the subcommittee. School committee has to vote on them. So there's a process, a very detailed process. I know you were talking with Sam about policy. I don't know how the selectmen, what their process was that they follow, but when I started all of the policy subcommittees that we had and maintained them, we would take chunks of the book, the manual, and we would go through those to see if we needed any wordsmithing, edits. And then the bottom, the footnotes, would tell you if we revised it, if we affirmed it, because we didn't change it, or if we rewrote it, or if there was any, whatever the changes were, or if we consolidated, and then what we consolidated. So you'd have a history in the bottom of the policies. Then if there was something that was new, and we were charged with finding something new, then we would bring in the person that it was going to directly affect. If it was something dealing with health, or it was something dealing with curriculum, or if it was a personnel issue. If it was school committee, then we would say, okay, this is what we want to do. We would take then that topic and take a look not only what was going on in Massachusetts districts, but what might be going on, say, in Oregon, or Washington State, or Florida, on the same subject, to see what their twist was, because it's education. We want to see how they were developing their policy. So it was a longer process than just saying, oh, I'm just going to sit down here and I'm just going to write a bunch of words down, or I want a certain direction for the school system, and that's where I want it to go. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with making sure that you did enough research so that it was broad and it would guide what we did and not restrict us in any way, shape, or form. It can also guide the superintendent. And the financial policies that we had originally were consolidated and then rewritten by our town treasurer, because he was in the business office at the time. And I don't think some of the members of the school committee understood the process or understood the history or understood any number of things with the comments that were made when they decided to go to the Mass Association of School Committees. Because I sat at that school committee meeting and I was surprised at some of the comments that were made that showed that they had a lack of understanding of what our process was. So I would like to continue policy. I love to do policy. I know that's funny.
It's actually interesting you bring it up. Is it accessible online, the policies that have been crafted?
They were acceptable when I left school committee. It's more difficult now. I don't know what they're doing with the website. I didn't try to access it within the past let's see, what is this, January? 4 months. When I tried to access it last fall, it was very difficult. It used to be per section, and now you just have to run through it, and there wasn't any way in which you could put in a phrase or a topic and have it actually come up. So the search engines went to 0.
Wow.
Now, it wasn't always like that. We had search before, and we were able to do that. So I don't know what happened and how it evolved over the time.
Well, we've run out of time, but we appreciate you coming on. And
Well, town meeting rep, Precinct 5. I hope I have a vote for everybody in Precinct 5.
awesome.
I'm up to this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.